Hey everybody, what's going on? Happy Thanksgiving. I am Greg Sussman, joined today by Tom Vecchio of FanDuel, who's going to help us break down these Thanksgiving Day games from a DFS perspective. What's happening, Tom?
I'm doing good. Happy Thanksgiving to you guys as well. 3-game slate. It's certainly one of my favorite slates of the year. Let's jump in. We got plenty to get to.
Absolutely. So we're going to give you 3 superstars you got to get in your lineup, and then 3 undervalued players that's worth taking a shot on. So let's start at the top with the best wide receiver in the NFL, and that is Michael Thomas, playing on Thursday Night Football on Thanksgiving for the second consecutive year. Wasn't a great game for the Saints against the Falcons last time out. Michael Thomas was, of course, amazing. Why do you like Thomas as your top play of the day?
Yeah, like you said, he is the best receiver in the league. And in that most recent game against Atlanta, they only put up 9 total points, 3 field goals. He still came away with 21 FanDuel points, 14 targets, 13 receptions, 152 yards, and their offense really didn't do a whole lot. We're just locking in about 20 FanDuel points, regardless of the game script for the Saints. Double-digit targets in every week since week 4, over 100 yards in 5 straight games. And listen, he's the most expensive skill player by almost $1,000. But you just want to lock in that floor of consistency along with upside if this game does turn into a bit of a shootout. You look at some of the advanced stats for Thomas, he leads the team in everything. Targets, air yards, market share of air yards, total market share. Listen, and when the push comes to shove for the Saints, he has 19 red zone targets, and the next closest player only has 10 on the Saints. So just lock in those points and move on. I think we have enough value on the slate to kind of move, jam him in, move on to a few other top stars.
You cannot go wrong with Michael Thomas on any slate. Even when the Saints don't score, he scores, which is why he's locked and loaded into our lineups on Thanksgiving Day. Another player that's going to be eating a ton of turkey and scoring a ton of points, the Cowboys' Ezekiel Elliott. He got back on track last week, Tom, and I know a lot of people have called Ezekiel Elliott a bit of a disappointment this year. Not in DFS, not on Thanksgiving. Zeke against the Bills is someone you're targeting tomorrow.
Yeah, like you said, if there's any time for the Cowboys to feed Zeke, I guess it's going to be on Thanksgiving. And you look at the Bills' defense, and they're a bit of a run funnel where they're actually really, really good against the pass, allowing the 5th fewest FanDuel points per game to wide receivers. And they're really average against the running backs, allowing 21.3 FanDuel points per game. That is 15th in the league. They are very average. We have the Cowboys coming in as a home favorite. They're going to be feeding Zeke all day, get ahead, and then just give him the ball. We don't have to be worried about a timeshare for him. Everyone, in the preseason talking about, Pollard, but Zeke is still playing over 80% of the snaps. The second highest team total on the board, sitting at 26 with a 6.5-point spread in favor of the Cowboys. And even by some chance, if they do fall back, we know that he's been more involved in the passing game as of late. 3 targets over the past 3. He's been up at 7 in some games. He's just that safe option you want in your lineups this week.
Whether you're entering your lineup tomorrow or Thursday on Thanksgiving or today, it doesn't matter. Zeke should be in there. He's going to eat. Feed him the ball. You'll have a lot of success for the Cowboys and inside your FanDuel lineups. Up next for us here, Tom, we get to Julio Jones. A little banged up coming out of last week's contest. Short week here. Spent some of the time during this contest against the Bucs in the locker room. You have no fear against the Saints on Thursday night.
No, and I think a lot of people are going to be deciding, can we go to Julio or Michael Thomas? I think it's viable to get both of them in your lineup. And, the injury concerns we do have to monitor as the week goes on. And a lot of people are going to say, oh, he's going to be seeing, Marshawn Lattimore for the Saints. But we look back at this, the previous time they played a few weeks ago, 9 targets, 3 receptions isn't great, but 79 yards on those 3 receptions is pretty solid. We look back to last year, he had 147 yards, 96 yards, and 16 total receptions in those 2 games versus the Saints last year. He has 8 or more targets in 6 straight weeks, and people are going to be saying, oh, we have Calvin Ridley, we have Russell Gage even taking a step forward, but their targets and production, more importantly, on those targets are more variable compared to Julio Jones. And we should be seeing the Falcons playing from behind, which just means more passing for them overall. So I like Jones this week. I like Michael Thomas this week. I like them in the same lineup this week.
Why choose one over the other when you could get both in there? That's what Tom Vecchio is doing. It's what you should be doing as well. And we'll tell you just how to do it right now. Because there's plenty of undervalued players that you can get into your lineup. And it starts in this same game with Traquan Smith. You have Smith on the other side of Michael Thomas. He is cheap. He's been targeted by Drew Brees quite a bit recently. There's someone to consider here, Tom.
Yeah, like you said, he is cheap. He is $4,500. That is the absolute minimum price point for a wide receiver. And if we're expecting this game to have some scoring, which we are, the highest over on the board is sitting at 49.5. More of the production should come from besides Thomas, besides Kamara. We want a game stack scenario. And we know, Traquan Smith missed a ton of time due to injury, but he's come back in the past 3 weeks, 83, 60, and 71% of the snaps in the past 3 weeks, which is really solid. He had a touchdown last week. He is being out targeted compared to Ted Ginn, but Ted Ginn is playing fewer snaps compared to Traquan Smith. So it's this trade-off. Okay, Ted Ginn's a little bit more expensive. He may have a bigger role in the offense, but Traquan Smith is cheaper and he's playing more snaps. So why don't we take the cheaper guy, which allows us to get to Julio Jones, allows us to get to Michael Thomas, and go for that game stack perspective and the highest total over-under game on the slate.
Clearly the highest total on the board, and you need to stack this game. Traquan Smith, at this price, just $4,500. Well, why can't he get in the end zone? You got to expect this game to be higher scoring than the last time these two teams played, and hopefully that means a lot of fantasy points for all those Saints and Falcons you put into your lineup. Up next with us, Tom, we go over to Anthony Miller with the Chicago Bears. First Bear that makes our lineup here this week. His numbers have been trending up as well, but Taylor Gabriel's injury has to serve as one of the major reasons you want to get Miller into your lineup.
Absolutely. Taylor Gabriel dealing with a concussion. It's a short week. Will he be cleared? Won't he? That's something we really, really need to monitor. And with a 38.5 over under, and it being an early game, I know a lot of people will be trying to limit their exposure to this game. And if you are, I think that one of the players you want to have is Anthony Miller. We know that the Lions defense is not good against wide receivers, specifically allowing the 12th most FanDuel points per game at 30.4. We know that Darius Slay is likely going to be on Allen Robinson, and that wants me to go to Anthony Miller, who has 20 targets over the past 2 games. He's finishing second and third in snaps over the past 2 games, and we have to account for Taylor Gabriel missing some time last week. But if that, again, continues to be the trend, Miller at $5,400 is going to see plenty of action in this week's contest.
He's going to get all the action he can handle. The question is, can Mitchell Trubisky get him the ball? This game between the Lions and the Bears is not exactly exciting. It's an NFC North snoozer. But for our fantasy purposes, Anthony Miller, he may be someone that is cheap and can get you some points, allowing you to get Julio Jones, Michael Thomas, and some more studs in your lineup. One last player that you want to consider, and he is an undervalued player, Jason Witten. It's not exactly exciting. It's a tight end. But when you look at this slate of tight ends, none of them are exciting. Jason Witten's cheap, and he may be the obvious choice. It's a lethal combination here, Tom.
Yeah, I think Jared Cook is probably the best option at tight end. I mean, we're not dealing with a lot. Tight end is usually one of the lower outcome, positions anyway. But he has the 4th most targets on the Cowboys. He has 4 or more targets in every single game this season. He's number 1 in red zone targets for the Cowboys, and both of his touchdowns this year have come from the red zone. He also hasn't scored since week 2, so if we're looking for a little bit of positive touchdown regression, it could be on Jason Witten. And if people are going up to Cook, a lot of people will drop down to even Jadon Graham for Atlanta, who's been seeing some good snaps, over 50% in the past 2 weeks. Even Dawson Knox is cheap for the Bills. If people are going to be going all the way down or all the way up to Jared Cook, Witten falls in this middle ground. And you make the dad runner jokes about him. He's not the most exciting player to roster, but the red zone targets are what's important. And we're going to be looking at a higher scoring total for the Cowboys specifically, not necessarily the game, but the total for the Cowboys is enticing at 26 this week.
Cowboys and Bills, the primetime game before we get to the main event. During dinner, you'll enjoy it with hopefully Jason Witten finding the end zone. He's done it before on Thanksgiving. Hopefully, he can do it again. That's going to do it for us here on the FanDuel Hurry Up. Tom, I appreciate the time, and welcome back, man.
Thanks for having me. 3-game slate. Everyone enjoy that. Eat all day and watch some football.
Tomorrow, Jim Sanos will join me as we take a look at Sunday's games for DFS Perspective. It should be fun. Enjoy Thanksgiving. Enjoy this weekend. I'll see you tomorrow here with Jim Sanos on the FanDuel Hurry Up.